that you've seen before. We are very happy to see you, but we're also a little sad because it's our last opportunity to do this year, and you'll all be moving on to the next grade, 5th grade, so we want to wish you best of luck with that, and best of luck for the rest of the school year. And just again, thanks for inviting us into your classrooms, letting us be a part of your lives this year. It's been really a lot of fun for us, hopefully a lot of fun for you too. And another thing that we want to say, and we'll probably reiterate this again at the end of the talk, is we hope that you'll get a chance to come down to the museum this summer with your families. You'll be able to see a lot of the different things that we've shown you on the video. We've been doing this in our museum gallery, so you'll be able to come and see the things that we've shown you. And especially the last two, last time and then this one today, both are taking place in our Fort Howard exhibit, which is kind of our big, exciting exhibit for the year. It's one that we worked really hard on, we're really excited about, and we really hope you have a chance to come and see it. Can you give me a show of hands? Has anyone been down to the museum and seen this exhibit with their families here? All right, so quite a few.
Class. Hopefully we'll see everyone's hand raised at some point.
Yep, and there's actually, if might be hard for you to remember, but you might want to mention it to your parents this weekend. There's going to be some events going on directly related to what we're talking about today, so you can actually come see Kevin in person. So we'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go on with the day here. So without further ado, let's get down to the topic at hand. You can see behind me there's a lot of really interesting looking stuff. There's this contraption with the wheels. There's stuff sitting on the shelf back here that you probably can't see too well, but we'll show you each of those things. And what we're talking about today is archaeology. And a few months ago, I believe it was back in February, Lisa, the museum's curator, and I talked to you about the basics of archaeology, what it is, what types of things that we have in the museum that were brought here and that we have because of archaeology, and some of the archaeology that goes on in Wisconsin specifically. In this area. But we're going to talk to you today not about archaeology that was done years ago by people long ago, but work that's going on today right here in the middle of Green Bay. So before we get started, what I want to do is have a couple of you come up to the camera like we usually do and tell us what archaeology is. What is archaeology? And we'll start here with Miss Yerk's class. Is there someone who can come up and give me a definition? What is archaeology?
See a hand in the back row by the window. Oh, there's somebody coming up.
All right, then just...
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so we're looking for a definition. What is archaeology?
They're like treasure hunters, kind of. Like they find treasure all over the world.
They do. They find things that might be what we normally think of as treasure, silver, gold, that kind of stuff. They also find things that may be made of stone or less precious materials, but those things are treasures anyway because they can teach us a lot about history of the world. Let's have someone from our next class here, Miss Amundsen's class. Amundsen's class. Excuse me. All right. Oh, we got somebody coming up. So what's archaeology all about?
Archaeology is like a person who tries to discover dinosaur bones.
That's not dinosaurs. The study of people and the stuff that they left behind. The thing where there is people. But that's what a lot of people think about, though, when they think of archaeology. The word there is paleontology. So that's the study of fossils or specimens before humans were around. So, but it's a good guess. It's what a lot of people think, and that's why we're talking to you guys today, so that for the rest of your lives you'll know the difference. That archaeology is not about dinosaurs, but it's about people and the stuff that they made and left behind.
All right. So Ms. Turnbull's class. Somebody have something to tell us about archaeology. Come on up.
Oh, I think you have to unmute.
Yeah, can you unmute it? Yeah, we're not able to hear you on the microphone. Can we move over to the next class and we'll try to get it fixed so you can tell us your answer, okay? So while they're working on that, let's move over to our last class, Miss Moore's class.
All right. How about the young lady standing up with the black jacket on? Yep, that's you. Or red and black, I guess.
Looks black to us.
Hi.
Hi,
So what's archaeology all about?
archaeology is when they like find stuff like they left behind, like people, and they can like see how long it was ago, and then maybe find out who it belonged to.
Right. Well, what's the word stuff? There's a special word we use in archaeology. It starts with the letter A. Stuff is a
Bonus question. You know?
Artifacts.
artifact.
Very good.
Good job. Yeah.
All right, and then let's go back. Did we get our sound issue sorted out in Ms. Turnbull's class?
Oh, we can't hear you. Maybe just unmute. You could mime it.
Yep. Or you know what? Why don't if there's a class next door you can go into? I think we did that last time. Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep,
we got
we're
you.
Say it's Mr. Averbeck's fault. All right, go ahead.
Archaeology is when somebody tries to find something like a clay bottle, and they try to figure out how did people use this as a tool to find out more about them.
Very good.
Great
Yeah.
answer.
So it's really about the things that people have left behind, especially when they don't leave behind writing or something that you could say, oh, this is how life was like back then. So we use the material culture, that's the fancy way of saying it, of what people left behind. And there's a lot of different ways of doing that, and I guess I'm going to talk to you a little bit about now how we go about doing it. Is that cool if we go through the process?
Yeah, and actually you're going to use an actual study that's going on right now to do that, right? So it's kind of a case study, and this is stuff that Kevin is actually doing, well, not at this moment, but he's actually working on this right now.
Right, so first of all, it takes some education. You guys are getting that right now, and when you get a little bit older in high school and maybe you decide to go on to college, there's courses you can take in this. Archaeology really is about a lot of different things, but it's art, history, and science. But really, science is the big one. We use mathematics a lot and measurement. So we don't just go out and decide we're going to go find stuff from the past where we want to dig, wherever we want to dig. We come up with an hypothesis of where something might be buried or what might have been there. So you may have heard the word hypothesis before, right? It's a question. It's like, I want to answer a question about the past. Well, we have a hypothesis, and we want to answer that. So I have a photograph here, and we're in the exhibit. We talked about, I think you learned about this last time, the site of Fort Howard. This is the American fort, and these are the actual buildings from 1863 that were across the street from the museum. And so you can see there's several different buildings, and some of these are actually today at Heritage Hill at the state park, so in this Green Bay area. But all of these buildings are gone, and today this is a whole neighborhood back here. That's looking west toward basically Lambeau Field would be way over here. The Fox River is down here. So we use photographs as one method of identifying where we might find the buildings or where the buildings were. In this case, it's not the artifacts necessarily we're going to look for, it's the features. The features are something that doesn't move. It's the things like foundation walls that we're going to try to find of where these buildings stood, because everybody kind of wants to know, where was this fort located? And we have ways of now figuring that out. So
to reiterate, what Kevin's goal is he's trying to figure out where the fort exactly was. Based on photographs and other research that we've done, we know about where it was, but we want to find the exact location. And to do that, he's going to be using a number of the different tools here to search for things like foundations, because when those buildings were destroyed or moved or came down, chances are there was things left behind, and that's what Kevin's looking for, is the little pieces that were left behind, and those are the clues he's going to use to put this puzzle back together.
We got some really cool technology to be able to do that, and we'll explain what the big one is behind me here. But it starts even at the beginning with something very simple, like a compass. You guys all have seen compasses before. There it's pointing north. So based on those maps, remember, and the photographs, we can then start to say, okay, let's follow our compass and create a point. and a big square. We call it a grid that we're going to use as our area to start looking. And so we follow our compass, we set up our grid, and there's a couple ways of doing that. We can pull measuring tapes. This is a big thing we do to measure out the size of the grid that we're going to use. Now, in archaeology, we use the metric system. So that's, if you've studied it in math yet, it's a lot more simple than the feet and the inches and the tenths of inches and everything like that. Metric is so much easier where you're using centimeters and then meters to measure out space on the landscape. And so that's the international standard of archaeology, is metric, so, or of science in general too. So we measure out, we'll put this along here, and we create a transect. A transect is basically like when you mow the lawn at home, it's the line that you follow when you're looking at the cut grass, and then you turn your lawnmower around and you follow the same line back where the grass is a little bit taller. You can tell the straight lines that you're going back and forth. That's what we do when we then start to use this piece of technology. Very few museums in America, and certainly we're the only one in Wisconsin that has one of these. It's ground penetrating radar. So there's three words there: ground, right, that we stand on, the ground. So we have it on top of this kind of mock excavation drawer table here. So ground penetrating, meaning going into something, and then radar. Radar is actually an acronym, so it stands for something else, and it means radio and ranging detection. So it's using a device called radar that's inside of here to look into the Earth without actually digging into it. And I have an example of how you can think about this. I understand you've studied a little bit about wavelengths and how that works. But this is a machine that actually does it without, you don't hear anything, it's completely silent. But the radar is, as you push it along, I'm going to use this flashlight as an example.
Yep, and I should maybe say too, if you aren't able to tell, this is a piece that we have in the Fort Howard exhibit to talk about archaeology. So this green stuff here is the grass, and it's meant to look like a hill where if you cut straight down, this is what it would look like underground. So you got your grass, the roots of your grass, and then as you go down and dig a hole, the deeper you get, the color of the soil might change, the composition, the way it is might change. So if you were to cut into the side of the hill or dig straight down and then stand in the hole and look at it, this is what it might look like.
Right, and that's actually what the GPR, we call it GPR, ground penetrating radar, actually does when you're surveying. So as you're pushing it along, just like you would mowing your car or your lawnmower, you can see the light here. Pretend that this light is radio waves that are going down through the Earth and bouncing off of hard objects. So as I come down here, you'll see like when it hits this object, the light stops and then it bounces around it, okay? That is what you're going to see on the screen. It actually goes up through these cords up here, and it's on the display screen. So when I'm pushing it along, I can see where there's something underground, where it's buried. So if there's an object that's about a foot underground, I can tell based on a big arc that'll show up on the screen. And I know that there's something buried underneath that arc. I just don't know what it is. I just know it's hard because the radar is telling me that everything around it is soft earth, until it hits, boom, something hard, and then the radio waves go around it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not like an X-ray where you can get almost a picture, a photograph of it. It just tells you that there's something there, and that something is your starting point for where you're going to do further research.
And stitching it together over a bigger area. So that's why we go back and forth, and we call it mowing the lawn, right? And we keep doing that and collecting the information. All of that information is stored then in this little computer chip right here. And I take this back to my office and I put it into a computer, and then I have special software that then allows me to start peeling away layer after layer after layer of the entire area that we surveyed. So I have some data to show you from Fort Howard. This was just what we did, and we'll be showing this again this weekend. Tomorrow, in fact, tomorrow we'll be over there at the site, and Saturday for most of the day. So the museum is just across the street over here, and it's right along the river. based on where we know where it is. So here is a big grid. This is 20 meters by 20 meters, so 60 feet or so by 60 feet. And in here, at different levels, there's actually blotches. Excuse me. You have large areas to show that there's probably, in this case, something buried about 2 feet down. When you see it, this is what's happening with the radar. It bounces down off of a buried object and goes back, and then you see it on the screen here. And so when you're seeing it in the field, this is what you see is a bunch of arcs. It's only afterwards that you can see the pattern.
Yeah, and as you look at that, can we see that one more time, Kevin? So as you're looking at this blue part here, I'll get it real close while Kevin's getting the next thing. You can see this little blotch right here. It's yellow and red, and it looks a lot like you might see on the news, because radar is the same technology that they use for weather forecasting. They send signals up into the sky, and then depending on how it bounces back, that's how they know what the weather might be. And animals like dolphins and bats use that too. They send out that high pitch, and then they listen back, because if a bat makes that really high-pitched squeal, it might hit a bug and then come back, and the bat can tell that the radio was interrupted, so it knows where to fly to catch the bat. So it's a technology all used throughout nature and by people for other purposes too.
It's like echolocation is what that's called, and this in a sense is similar, because yes, the radar wave is bouncing down and coming back. So this is pretty cool high-tech technology. Here is, I've overlaid it over the site. So now we kind of knew where the fort may have been, and we have a survey area. Now we're starting to look and dice through the earth, and we start to see these patterns emerging in different areas. So now we know, okay, if there's a hard target here, we want to go and excavate a shovel test to just see what might be down there. It's called ground truthing. So that's the next step. So now we've collected data. Now we have a good idea of exactly where to excavate.
So here's less high-tech technology.
Right, so the hand tools. So we employ a couple things. We got the shovel. A lot of manual labor is involved in archaeology. It's good for the muscles. You get outside. I've done a number of excavations all over the world. If you like to travel and be outside, it's a really fun career path. So we use measurement, just like I said, with metric system. We go down, and I noticed on the radar and the data, it said at about 50 centimeters down, there was a hard target. So we go excavate through the earth. We use the shovels, and then we use trowels. These are hand tools for making more like precision cutting, right, when we're going down, because we want to make sure we're going down in even levels. Because as we go down through those levels, or the stratigraphy, as Ryan was mentioning, we want to record the levels and the colors of the soil, because that is information of different time periods oftentimes. And so we have fancy soil charts that we're recording in our notebooks as we go down. And as we're doing that, we're excavating, and the soil in that shovel test goes right into this screen, and this is a screen that I made, and you shovel, you screen back and forth, and then you're finding, if you bring it closer, this is a 1/4-inch screen. You're looking for all those little bits, those tiny artifacts that would otherwise, you would lose them if you didn't actually screen through the soil. And it's helpful because you find then some really cool stuff that you wouldn't lose otherwise. I'll show you as you excavate. Here's my field journal that I've used to find, you can see here, different stone tools. These were found in Illinois. So here's the art component of the science and history of archaeology, where you take detailed notes, and you get to sometimes draw, if you're a good drawer, about what you're finding. Also, when you're collecting ground-penetrating radar information, you want to keep track of it with your notes here about where you are seeing things on the ground and how that has to be factored into what you see with the data in the computer. So that's what you're doing, is you go down, you're finding these artifacts, and you're recording the information, because the big word that I want you guys to learn is context. So if you can all say that word, context. Can you say that? We can imagine you're saying it. Context, C-O-N-T-E-X-T. That means it's something in relation to something else. So the context of this artifact, I'll tell you what, you'll have to come and see what it is, but there's an old pistol in here that came from Fort Howard. That's from about 1850. So it was used over there. It's pretty cool. But the context of that pistol being at the site of where there was a military fort makes sense. Now we know that. Also, the context of where it is in the ground, and this color of dirt or the strata of earth, we know then that if you find this other color or strata across the site, you're going to be probably looking at the same time frame. So that's the context of relationships to other objects in the earth as well as across the landscape.
Yep. The way that I always think of it is, let's say you needed to clean out your locker at school. Let's say you got a lot of garbage in there, but you know that an assignment that you had to hand in is somewhere in there. And you saw it there, and you know it's in there somewhere. And let's say you dig it out, and you find it. And then let's say the next day you want to put it back in the same spot where you found it so you can find it again. If you don't remember where you put that assignment, you're not going to be able to put it back in the same place in your locker. Or if you're trying to fix something, like if I'm trying to fix my car and I take a piece out and I put the new piece in and then I want to put the car back together and I'm like, oh, where does this hose connect? Where does this belt go? If you don't remember how you got there, you can't go back again. And archaeology is a lot like that. Once you dig something up and pull it out of the ground, if you want to go back and ask yourself a question, if you didn't take good notes, if you didn't take photographs, if you didn't take drawings, all of a sudden you're not going to be able to figure out the answer to that question because you get one shot at this.
It's a destructive science, we call it, because yeah, you're reducing. Once it's gone, you've lost the information. So when sometimes in the past people have gone and like treasure hunters, they're just looking for the treasure, but they forget the context of those artifacts with relation to each other. It's akin to ripping a page out of a history book. So just like this, if you were to go along and pull that, let's say you found a whole bunch of coins in the ground, but that was part of a bigger story that you could have told, like the history. Just like that, it's gone. It's to the wind. We would have missed then the chapter that could have then given us the clue to why those coins ended up there and who they were using those coins. So really, archaeology is about time. It's a time detective. So it's being a detective through time to understand the who, the when, the why, and the where of human family. And the where is yet to be determined, and where you guys go in your careers is going to be an exciting adventure, and we hope you come and see us here, learn a little bit about this great fort and the foundations of Green Bay, and certainly Ashwaubenon as well has lots of history, not only in your school but also in your own backyard. So if you do excavate in the summer with helping with any kind of gardening projects, think about artifacts, that you might find, and maybe keep a map and a drawing of what those are. And who knows, you're on your way then to an archaeology career.
All right. So that was a lot of information. We hope you have a couple questions for us. So we're going to go down the line like we do, and hopefully be able to answer a few of the questions that you might have. So let's start off again in Ms. Yerk's class. All right, teacher's choice. Bring on up whoever looks like they have the most interesting question. All right. Hey there. What questions do you have for us?
How much stuff did you put on the computer chip?
How much stuff? Well, it collects. I mean, it depends on how much information or how far you're pushing this lawnmower, this GPR. But it's several megabytes. But again, you're looking into the earth up to, when I'm surveying at Fort Howard, it's about 6 feet, so 2 meters deep, and I'm going at least 20 meters long, so that's almost 60 feet. By 60 feet, by then 2 meters, so that's 6 times 60 is 120 square meters, then cubed by another 2. So there's a lot of information, right, that you're mapping. So, and then it's peeling it back through the layers.
And about how long does that take for a piece of land that size?
To do a survey like that for that grid size, it's several hours. Most of the hard part is setting up the grid to begin with. You want to make sure it's nice and square so that when you're pushing the GPR, you're not swerving like this. You're going in very straight lines so that when you go back to the map, you have then very accurate information to say, okay, now I know exactly where in the grid on the X, Y coordinates there's going to be something, a target that we want to go investigate. So it's several hours per grid, and then it's very fast once you put it into the computer. It's another couple of hours to then start slicing through the layers of data. And then that's the first step. Then you get to go and find it, go look at it, and see what it actually is. That takes time. So, but in the end, it's spent less time just looking randomly for stuff than we actually know what we're looking for.
Yeah, years ago when they didn't have this technology, it would have taken much longer to survey a site like that. All right, so Ms. Evanson's class. Who has a question we can answer for you? All right, teacher's choice again. Hi there, what question can we answer for you? Oh, can you unmute it, please? There we go.
What kind of stuff have you guys found?
Oh, one more time. Repeat it, please.
What kind of stuff have you guys found?
All right, we didn't hear it yet. We heard part of it. What kinds of what did we do?
Stuff found in the.
What kinds of stuff have we found in the ground?
Good, yeah.
Okay. Well, right now, it depends. At Fort Howard site, we have yet to excavate, actually, but at least the museum has. There have been other excavations over the years that have been done, and they found the artifacts are actually in these drawers. So if you come down here, you can pull some of these out and take a look. From locks, that were used on doors, to a key actually that was used to unlock one of those locks. There's bricks a lot of times. There's a lot of construction materials. In my career, as I've done archaeology around the United States and beyond, we found humans that have been buried in the earth over thousands of years. A lot of times it's also the food that people ate, and so that's often in features or pits, and you find like cow bones if it's historic, or if it's before Europeans, you find things like elk bone, or even if it's really old, things like mammoth remains, mammoth tusks, and things like that. And if you're interested in that time period of history, you should come down here, because next weekend we'll be opening a brand new exhibit about the Ice Age, so that's going to be really exciting. And there's some really cool stuff that's even in this area from that period 10,000 and more years ago.
Yep, that's going to be a fun exhibit. So you see Fort Howard and Ice Age stuff all on the same day. That'll be a good day for you. Start off your summer. All right, Ms. Trimble's class. Can we have somebody come up? Sounds like we got our microphone sorted out.
Yep, go ahead. Is that a camera behind you?
Oh yeah, good. We didn't talk about that. Let me. It's not a camera. It's a transit, or a theodolite is another word. It's a scope. So what you do is, Ryan, I'm going to give you this part. All right, stand over there. So you might have seen people like on the street, like the city workers using one of these. What they're doing is they're looking in here, and it's a sighting scope. I'm looking in at where Ryan is holding the prism. This maps the topography, or the landscape, the layers on the surface of the Earth of where, of how the Earth is either flat or has undulations or variations in it. We also use this to mark the corners of the grid. So wherever our grid is, we'll have this scope there, and it's much more accurate than a compass. The compass is good for a line of sight. So you're following that, you're just eyeballing it. With this, it has it's like a little telescope, and that will actually give you really close and very precise measurements. So then you can mark those corners, and then you can always know where the corners are of your grid, so you can go back to that and find where your spots are if you want to excavate in certain areas. So it's called a transit, so if you use that word, or the fancy word is theodolite, which is kind of a mouthful too.
Sounds like a Roman soldier.
Yeah.
All right, and then our last class here, Ms. Messmore's class. I think we skipped one. We'll come back to the other class. Come on up.
How far down can that radar go?
GPR. The GPR, how far does it look into the Earth?
Yeah.
Is that the question? Well, it looks up to 20 feet down. If you want to look that far into the earth, 20 feet, which is a lot, that's a pretty far down. Most of the archaeology that we're going to see around here is within the first meter or 2 meters, so up to 6 feet, about my height above or below the ground. But there's certain parts of this area that over time, dump trucks brought in dirt and filled in and buried things underneath. So these were invented actually first to look through glaciers to see how thick glaciers were. So archaeology is a great science to borrow other technologies to make our jobs easier. And so with this, it was employed to use it for finding things like foundations of houses or buildings or buried remains. But to answer your question, about 20 feet is what this will look. So that's fairly deep. Now you'd spend a whole lot of time digging down 20 feet to find what you're looking for.
Yeah, and then one thing I would mention too, we didn't explain it too in depth, but the thing about archaeology is that generally speaking, and this isn't always the case, but what happens throughout history is that things that are old end up on the ground, and then things that end up on the ground end up getting buried in the earth. So the reason that we're talking about digging and looking underground and doing all this stuff is because as time goes on, older things tend to sort of get buried. A lot of what archaeologists find are things that people were disposing of. They were broken, or they were garbage, or they didn't need them anymore. So they might even bury them in the ground themselves, just like we bury things in a landfill. So that's why we're talking about all this digging and going underground, is because as things get old, they tend to get buried in the earth. And someday, if you think about it, 100, 500, 1,000 years from now, people might be using equipment even more sophisticated than this to look through the landfills, and they'll see the garbage that we're burying in the ground today.
They're already doing that. Archaeologists are looking at that. But yeah, this is the plastic age, right? If you looked in your textbooks, you may have learned about this already, but there was the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, right? It was defined, the age was defined by the type of technology. So we're in the digital age, but also in the plastic age, and that's what future archaeologists are going to discover about us. So what questions will they be able to answer? I guess that's the question we'll have to give them, either some information about who we are. I would say a really fun thing to do, if you didn't do this already, is to do a time capsule. You could do it as a class or do it at home and bury something about you or your family, or put it in a tree, in a bottle. I did this as a child, and I was back there recently, and I found, it's over 20 years ago, things that I'd left behind. So think about it through time. As a future archaeologist, what would you like the future to know about you? And maybe that's a good way to kind of think about archaeology in the future.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've gone on as usual a little bit more than we said we were going to. So again, sadly, this is our last time for the year, and you'll all be moving on to the next grade level. So next year, hopefully, we'll have a chance to talk to the incoming 4th graders. But we want to say thank you once again for letting us be part of your year this year, and hopefully we'll see you all again down here at the museum. And we're going to continue over the summer to open up new exhibits. So the best thing to do is just keep an eye on our website. Keep visiting us. We're always going to have something new. And
come down tomorrow and Saturday even if you can. And right by the museum across the street is the big railroad depot. Along the railroad tracks, we'll be using this thing. So if you want to learn how to use it and help us find the fort, do it. Come on down. It's a free program, and you'll get to learn archaeology in real time.
Yep, and then I'll mention too, I think tomorrow I'm going to try to come on out. It sounds like you're doing a big day with the Civil War reenactment, so I'm going to try to come out and see some of that. So hopefully I'll get a chance to meet some of you in person when we do that. So I look forward to seeing you then. So with that said, I think we're about ready to sign off.
All right.
Have a great rest of your day.
Good luck this summer. Have a great time. Hopefully we'll see you soon. It's been fun hanging out.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.